His vibrato is wide enough. He sometimes drifts a little bit higher than Elvis used to do. When Bob does it, it's ever so slightly higher than when Elvis used to do it. So that's a tiny difference.
For decades, one question has refused to disappear. Could a small-town Arkansas pastor really share more than just a similar voice with Elvis Presley?
With Bob, it's very much more you get more space between these peaks of vibrato, but with Elvis, it was a smoother transition and a faster transition.
Most people dismiss the idea as another internet rumor. But when an experienced forensic voice analyst examined recordings using the same technology trusted in criminal investigations, the results reportedly raised far more questions than answers. Was it simply an extraordinary coincidence? Or did the analysis uncover something that believers in the theory had suspected all along? The voice match that defied science. Dr. Andrew Castellano had spent more than 2 decades working in forensic audio analysis, examining over 10,000 voice samples throughout his career. His expertise had been used in numerous criminal investigations, where voice biometrics helped identify suspects, clear innocent people, and support evidence presented in court. After years of relying on scientific measurements, he had little reason to question the technology that built his reputation. In early 2019, Castellano accepted what seemed like another straightforward assignment. A documentary team asked him to examine one of the internet's most persistent celebrity theories, the claim that Arkansas pastor Bob Joyce was actually Elvis Presley, living under a different identity. Having investigated similar rumors involving other well-known figures, he expected the analysis to quickly put the speculation to rest. To begin, he collected high-quality recordings of Elvis Presley from different periods of the singer's career, choosing performances that offered clear audio for detailed examination. He then gathered publicly available sermons and gospel performances from Bob Joyce. Using forensic voice analysis software, he compared characteristics such as vocal resonance, pitch patterns, breathing behavior, and other vocal features that supporters of voice biometrics consider highly distinctive. Based on his previous experience, Castellano expected another ordinary outcome. Similar celebrity comparisons had rarely produced high similarity scores, even when 2 people naturally sounded alike. Instead, the first analysis reportedly showed a biometric similarity of more than 94%. The result immediately stopped him in his tracks. Rather than accepting the finding, Castellano assumed something had gone wrong. He restarted his system, selected different Elvis recordings from multiple years, and repeated the analysis over and over again. He compared studio sessions, live performances, informal recordings, and additional samples of Bob Joyce taken from different years and settings. Every comparison produced strikingly similar results, with reported matches ranging from the low 90% range to nearly 97%. What unsettled him most was not a single high score, but the consistency. Despite differences in recording quality, recording dates, and environments, the results remained remarkably stable. For Castellano, that consistency was harder to explain than one unexpected match. If 2 unrelated people simply sounded alike, the similarity scores would normally vary as different recordings were analyzed. Instead, the reported pattern barely changed from one test to the next. The repeated findings left him searching for answers that the software alone could not provide. Determined to understand what might explain the unusual results, Castellano shifted his focus beyond voice analysis and began digging into Bob Joyce's background. That decision would soon lead him to decades-old records in Arkansas, where an unexpected document would push the mystery in a completely different direction. The family connection nobody expected. Determined to learn whether there was any explanation beyond the voice analysis, Dr. Andrew Castellano shifted his attention to historical records. If the biometric comparisons truly raised unusual questions, he believed the answer, if there was one, would have to be found somewhere outside the laboratory. As his investigation continued, Dr. Andrew Castellano reportedly discovered a baptism record from Arkansas dated October 22, 1978, approximately 14 months after Elvis Presley's widely reported death. The document recorded the baptism of a man identified as Robert Allen Joyce. marking what appeared to be the beginning of his involvement with a small Baptist congregation. While the timing naturally stood out, Castellano reportedly found something else even more intriguing. Rather than focusing on the date itself, his attention shifted to the names listed on the baptism certificate, which he believed raised additional questions and warranted a closer examination. The officiating minister was identified as Reverend James Hamill, a pastor whom supporters of the theory claim had known Elvis during his younger years and played a role in his early spiritual life. However, public records indicated that Hamill had reportedly passed away in 1975, several years before the baptism was said to have taken place. Another name on the document proved even more surprising. A witness signature appeared to belong to Elvis Presley, Elvis's uncle, and a longtime member of the Presley family's inner circle. Vester had spent years working at Graceland and was known to have been close to Elvis throughout much of his life. If the document was genuine, Castellano believed it raised another question that deserved further investigation. Why would a close Presley relative be connected to the baptism of an otherwise unknown Arkansas pastor? Wanting answers, Castellano traced surviving members of Vester Presley's family. After months of searching, he reportedly located Vester's elderly daughter, Patty Presley, who was living in a nursing facility in Tennessee. Knowing she had likely spent decades avoiding conspiracy theories and media attention, he approached the meeting cautiously, presenting his research instead of making accusations. At first, Patty remained quiet, listening without offering much reaction as Castellano explained the reported voice analysis and the baptism record. Then, after a long silence, she finally spoke. Patty quietly told him that some secrets were preserved not to deceive the public, but to protect the people involved. That unexpected response reportedly gave him the confidence to continue asking questions. Over the next several hours, she allegedly shared personal memories that supporters of the theory believe offered a very different perspective on the events leading up to Elvis's final days. Her account suggested there were private conversations and difficult decisions that had never been publicly discussed. What she described next would later become one of the most emotional parts of the entire story, focusing on an alleged private family meeting that reportedly took place only weeks before the events of August 1977 changed everything forever. The family's hidden story. Patty Presley described a private family meeting that allegedly took place just a few weeks before Elvis Presley's reported death in August 1977. She claimed several trusted relatives were called to Graceland, where Elvis and his father, Vernon Presley, spoke behind closed doors about a decision that would permanently change the course of their lives. Patty reportedly recalled seeing Elvis exhausted from years of fame, yet unusually calm and focused. She claimed he explained that life as one of the world's biggest entertainers had become overwhelming. The endless performance commitments, financial obligations, and pressure surrounding his career had left him feeling trapped with no clear way out. She further alleged that Elvis believed escaping public life was the only path toward finding peace. According to the story she shared, a small group of trusted family members supposedly helped develop a plan that would allow him to leave his celebrity identity behind and begin a quieter life devoted to his Christian faith. These claims remain unverified and have never been confirmed by historical evidence. The most emotional part of Patty's account centered on what she described as a phone call the night before Elvis's reported death. She claimed his voice sounded unusually peaceful as he told her that the following day would mark either an ending or a new beginning. According to Patty, he thanked her for standing beside him long before worldwide fame entered their lives and suggested that, if everything went according to plan, she might someday recognize signs that he had successfully started over under a different identity. Patty went on to claim that more than a year later, her father, Elvis Presley, contacted her and asked her to pray for a man named Bob Joyce, who was beginning a ministry in Arkansas. She believed the request carried a deeper meaning and interpreted it as confirmation that the alleged plan had succeeded. As Castellano continued investigating, he reportedly found additional details that supporters of the theory viewed as significant. Among them were claims that Bob Joyce appeared in public records with little documented history before 1978, and that an early property associated with Joyce had allegedly been connected to a trust linked to Vernon Presley. These claims have not been independently verified. Patty also showed Castellano what she described as a private family photograph from 1981. According to her, the image appeared to show Vernon Presley standing beside a man she believed closely resembled an older Elvis. She further claimed this suggested Vernon remained alive beyond his publicly reported death. Another allegation that contradicts the historical record. Whether any of these accounts reflected reality remained impossible to verify. Yet for Castellano, the conversation shifted the investigation in an unexpected direction. Instead of relying only on family memories and disputed documents, he decided to return to the evidence he trusted most: the science behind the voices themselves. Can biology explain the match? After hearing Patty Presley's account, Dr. Andrew Castellano returned to the evidence he believed could be examined objectively. Personal stories and historical records were open to interpretation, but he believed the voice analysis deserved a closer look. His goal was not to prove the theory, but to determine whether the reported similarities could be explained through biology alone. Castellano focused on the physical characteristics measured during forensic voice analysis rather than someone's singing style or speaking habits. Supporters of this method argue that features such as vocal fold structure, resonance, breathing patterns, and other anatomical traits remain relatively consistent throughout a person's life and are far more difficult to imitate than accents or vocal impressions. One feature reportedly stood out above all the others. Castellano claimed both Elvis Presley and Bob Joyce displayed signs of bilateral vocal fold paresis, a rare condition involving partial weakness of the vocal folds. According to the theory, this condition can influence how a person's voice behaves, requiring subtle adjustments in breathing and vocal control that gradually become natural over many years. Supporters argue these unconscious compensatory patterns are highly individual and difficult to reproduce intentionally. The analysis reportedly suggested that both voices shared not only the same vocal characteristic, but also similar ways of compensating for it while speaking and singing. Castellano believed this was one of the most unusual findings in the entire comparison. To examine the claim further, he reportedly compared Elvis's 1977 recording of How Great Thou Art with Bob Joyce's performance of the same hymn decades later. After accounting for differences in recording quality and environment, the spectrographic analysis allegedly produced another remarkably high level of similarity between the two voices. According to Castellano, the harmonic patterns, vocal frequencies, and timing aligned far more closely than he had expected. Rather than relying only on his own findings, Castellano reportedly submitted the recordings to 3 independent forensic audio laboratories that regularly handled criminal investigations. He intentionally withheld the identities of the speakers, asking only for an objective biometric comparison. According to the story, all 3 laboratories initially concluded that the recordings appeared consistent with the same person at different stages of life. Reports claimed the experts found strong similarities despite the passage of time. One laboratory reportedly suggested that the subtle differences between the voices could be explained by the natural effects of aging, while another pointed to a shared vocal condition as a potentially meaningful detail. However, these reported findings have not been independently verified. However, Castellano claimed the situation changed when he requested formal reports that could be publicly cited. One laboratory allegedly requested additional testing before reaching a conclusion. Another declined further involvement, and a third reportedly indicated that it preferred not to participate in a case connected to a well-known public figure. Whether those developments were simply professional caution or something more remains a matter of debate. Still, Castellano believed the unanswered questions were far from over. As news of his investigation spread, people who had personally known Bob Joyce began coming forward with stories they believed added yet another layer to the mystery. The witnesses who added more questions. As reports of Dr. Andrew Castellano's investigation spread across online communities, more individuals reportedly came forward with personal stories they believed supported the theory connecting Bob Joyce and Elvis Presley. Although these accounts have not been independently verified, Castellano regarded them as additional claims worth recording. Alongside his voice analysis, he included these reports as part of the broader collection of information that some supporters believe contributes to the ongoing discussion surrounding the theory. Several members of Bob Joyce's congregation described him as someone with an unusually detailed knowledge of Memphis during the 1950s. He could recall neighborhoods, local landmarks, and everyday details with remarkable confidence. Others claimed he occasionally became emotional whenever Elvis Presley was mentioned, or when one of Elvis's songs was played. One church member even recalled a Bible study where Joyce reportedly paused in the middle of a discussion about fame and quietly reflected that having everything the world desired had nearly cost him everything that truly mattered. Castellano also claimed to have spoken with a retired Arkansas physician who had treated Bob Joyce during the early 1980s. Joyce experienced a chronic intestinal condition that supporters of the theory believe resembled a medical issue Elvis Presley had also faced. Although this observation has never been confirmed through publicly available medical records, Castellano considered it another point raised by those who believed the theory. Another claim came from a former dental assistant who reportedly worked with both men decades apart. According to Castellano, she believed the two shared an unusually similar dental structure, including comparable bite patterns and tooth alignment. Perhaps the most dramatic testimony came from a retired Memphis police officer. Castellano claimed the former officer described being assigned to escort what he believed was a deceased individual to the medical examiner's office during the early hours of August 16, 1977. The officer reportedly questioned the circumstances surrounding the transport and later suggested the events did not unfold as he would have expected. He also alleged that he was paid to remain silent about what he witnessed. These allegations have never been substantiated by official records. By 2023, Bob Joyce was continuing his ministry in Arkansas, avoiding media attention and focusing on preaching rather than addressing speculation surrounding his identity. To supporters of the theory, his quiet lifestyle reflected the life they believed Elvis had long desired. To skeptics, it remained another example of coincidence being interpreted as evidence. Even after gathering witness statements, Castellano still lacked the definitive proof that could settle the debate once and for all. Then, an unexpected package arrived at his office from Arkansas. Inside was a brief handwritten message that would become one of the most talked-about pieces of the entire investigation. One final message. The investigation took another unexpected turn in November 2023. Dr. Andrew Castellano reportedly received a package bearing an Arkansas postmark, but no return address. Inside was a single handwritten note on church stationery. The message did not identify the sender, yet its carefully chosen words immediately caught his attention. The note reportedly read, "Some voices are meant to shake the world. Mine shook it long enough. Now it whispers to those who need to hear God, not a ghost. The man you're looking for died in 1977. The man I am was born in 1978. Both can be true." Although it was unsigned, Castellano believed the handwriting deserved closer examination. According to the story, he compared the writing with samples of Elvis Presley's personal correspondence from the mid-1970s. He reportedly focused on letter formations, pen pressure, spacing, and other characteristics commonly examined in handwriting comparisons. Castellano claimed the similarities were striking, particularly in the way certain capital letters were formed. However, these observations have not been independently verified and should not be considered conclusive proof of authorship. For Castellano, the note seemed to bring together many of the claims he had spent years investigating. The reported voice analysis, the disputed baptism record, the alleged family testimony, witness statements, and the new handwriting comparison all appeared, in his view, to point toward the same possibility. Yet despite everything he had gathered, none of it provided the kind of publicly verified evidence capable of settling the debate beyond doubt. That uncertainty remains at the center of the Bob Joyce and Elvis Presley theory today. Supporters argue that the collection of reported similarities is too extensive to dismiss as coincidence. They point to the voice comparisons, the family connections described in the investigation, and the accounts shared by individuals who claim to know Bob Joyce personally. Skeptics, however, maintain that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and note that none of the central allegations have been confirmed by reliable historical records or official investigations. As a result, the mystery continues to divide opinions. For some, Bob Joyce is simply a pastor whose voice happens to remind listeners of one of music's greatest icons. For others, he represents one of the most fascinating celebrity theories ever discussed. Whether the reported evidence reveals an overlooked truth or simply reflects years of speculation layered upon coincidence is something each viewer must decide for themselves. What cannot be denied is that this story has endured for decades, continuing to spark debate long after Elvis Presley's death was officially recorded in history. So, after hearing the reported voice analysis, the family accounts, the witness statements, and the handwritten note, where do you stand? Was this investigation uncovering remarkable coincidences, or did it raise questions that history has never fully answered? Whatever your conclusion, one thing is certain. The conversation surrounding Bob Joyce and Elvis Presley shows no sign of fading anytime soon. If you found this story fascinating, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the evidence points to coincidence or something more? Then click on the next video to explore another incredible mystery, and don't forget to subscribe for more.